And so, I wasn't sure. Some people asked me if I would do a tirade. And it was tempting. But I couldn't think of anything to go into a tirade about. Election. Well, no, I probably won't specifically do a tirade. I mean, those of you who don't know what those are moments where the presence of God is just anchored into this earth in a unique way. We had a lot of people text or send Facebook messages and text and emails last night and this morning asking me to discuss certain things. If I don't cover something that's dear to your heart today, because I usually go on spontaneous inspirations, and if I don't cover something that's dear to your heart today, by all means, you can approach me in between services and I shoot for it in the second service, okay? But usually, as Spirit moves, usually we end up covering topics that are going on in people's minds, because that's sort of what intuition looks like, really, just picking things up as to what's going on. So, even though I will probably in this talk end up addressing some of the things going on in the world, in fact, I can see that I'm going to do that. It's funny because when I do talks, I just open up and say, "What would you have me say?" And then it just all starts happening. But as sometimes I try not to look at anybody in particular or specifically, because a lot of times people say, wow, there's an issue they sometimes want me to avoid talking about. And then that's in their energy field, and then I see them and I look at them and go, okay, that's what we're going to, and then we go there. Then later they're like, oh, all nervous about it. So if I talk about things, understand that it's not just about you individually that I'm picking up the energy from. It's not like that. And some people get scared about that sort of thing. Intuition scares some people for some reason. But just understand when I'm sharing things, I'm just sharing. It's not like I read something specific to a person. Once in a while, if it's important, I will do that. But generally, it's stuff that's going on for all of us. It's stuff that's going on in a lot of people, or in the world, or in that group over there, or this front row here, or, it's just whatever's happening. Try not to take it too personally. However, if you're struggling with something, at the same time, if you're struggling with something and we address it here, do understand that that is personal, in the sense that if your heart is calling out to God for some help and something is shared up here that helps you, do understand that is a form of answering prayers. So I'm saying, it's kind of funny, I'm saying that it is and yet it isn't specific to a person. It is and it isn't. It's what we call perfect. It's just perfect. Just sharing, and if it happens to land in a way that helps lift your heart and soul, accept it as a form of God answering your prayer. Because God's an interesting thing. God has a way of bringing the greatest good to the most number of people. God can make a person say a sentence that's interpreted 5 different ways and help 5 different people, or 5,000 different people hearing it each in one of those 5 ways. That's how multidimensional Spirit works. It's fantastic. And it isn't just people writing books and doing lectures here. Each of us is capable of being that channel. We just don't realize it. Some people think they're that channel and they're not really good at it. They boast it. The more it gets boasted, the less likely it's authentic. We have to do our best to really be humble about it. The reason I talk about it when I'm up here is to explain what's happening. It's not to boast. It's more to explain what's happening in the process, because people do ask. So one thing that's come up a lot, I guess, for folks, and I got, like I said, messages about this, is I could cover in the topic as follows. There's a difference between being, to be or not to be. The ultimate to be is the presence of God. We're all supposed to learn to be the presence of God. Now, if we were ultimately being the presence of God, we wouldn't even be on earth. If you mirror my growth. But instead I learned to say, wow, thanks for showing me that piece. I actually missed that. I forgot that you're kind of impatient. I forgot, yeah, that maybe I've got some of that. And then work on it. So I end up grateful either way. Grateful for the people that show me my growth and grateful for the people that show me where I'm stuck. Because then I'll choose to unstick that. So either way, I still become, one of the unbecoming. I'm becoming the being of God. God is a divine being. So I'm becoming that being. And when we become that being, things change. We don't just become divine yet. Technically, we go from not becoming that which I am not to that which is, becoming the I am. And there's shifts that happen. So we're going from not becoming to being. God, divine being. And there's that movement. And we watch ourselves, and we watch ourselves. And, we've worked on ourselves individually for a long time. And it helps when you look at a map and you feel a little lost, it helps to figure out where you are. Get just kind of a bearing, right? And it's the same using this that I'm describing. Are you a not becoming or are you a becoming? Don't tell me you're a being yet, but are you even becoming that being? Just words, right? But how much am I in the not becoming? Well, every time you're judgmental, you're not becoming anything but ego. I need to see myself becoming more holy. I'm learning to become more forgiving. See, that's where the words come in handy. What are you doing? Are you becoming more like God or are you not becoming more like God? Because that's why we're here. And I've said this many times, but let's make sure we understand that. Let's make sure we understand that. What are you here for? And it's almost never the reasons you think. You're here to become. Until you are. That's all. I need to be working on becoming more like God. Well, what I'm doing is I'm on earth in just about 46 more years. I can retire. And when I do, I think I'm going to move to a such and such a town and so on and so. People, you're not here for that. If all you do, even things that humans think are cool, I'm going to have children. I can't wait till I'm a grandmother. And I understand those things are cute. But while you're having children and grandchildren, doing the things you do and working and retiring, are you becoming more like God? Oh, definitely. How so? Well, because I'm a grandmother. Isn't it automatic? No. No. Are you becoming more like God? So something we've seen lately is there's all kinds of people that pray. Their moms, their dads, they're spiritual. They do ohms and chants and, hike red rocks and they wear, powerful stones. And as soon as something happens like an election, where did it all go? Brace yourselves. I'm feeling Jesus. Where does it all go? And you know what? I understand it's tempting to get pulled off, but you cannot be pulled off. You cannot be pulled over here unless there was an attachment somewhere. Is that wrong or bad? No. I've said this thousands of times in my many years of teaching. What determines your spirituality is not that you never get pulled off, it's how quickly you catch yourself and bounce back. So if you flipped out a little bit over an election, catch yourself and bounce back. People don't realize there are others on this planet that actually are invested in pulling you off center. There are people that make money on getting you upset. If you look at yourself and you don't like the outcome of an election, and it's, I knew the direction it was going to go and all that. That was all clear to me, but I see everything as a test in life. And what's amazing about this recent event, I don't like to name names of politicians, so I'm not going to because that just gives it power and I don't care. But what I care about is the human race, watching people lose their minds. That's what's important to me. The politicians have already lost theirs. But so I'm caring about the other people that are sort of straying off. So when I see folks steering off their center, it strikes me. But what's amazing about this is that globally, because here in a center like this, there might be 10 people going through a lot of stuff in their life just on any given week or month. There's a group of losses and hurts and deaths and breakups. There's people going through stuff, right? This is where the whole nation or planet gets to be brought into the dark night of the soul. Not because of who won, but the investments. And we can all do something about it and heal. When you're in hell, do something about it. That's when you bring the light to the darkest places. So don't spout opinions. Don't tell everybody what's right and wrong. This is kind of funny. I was just on the flight to Atlanta. And, here we stop and we're waiting. And it was one of those moments where they stop and everybody, gets up and we're all ready. But the gate wasn't available. So we're all just standing there waiting to get off the plane. And it was an unusually long period of time. And so I just said, this one lady finally starts going, gosh, what are they doing? And I said, let's talk about politics. It was great. You know me. I don't even care about politics. I just thought, let's just stir it up. And the lady in front of me turns, no. Just like that. It was so funny. No. And I was like, wow. I'm just kidding, man. Like, anything interesting happening lately? But globally, see, if you die tomorrow, I'm promising you this, if you die tomorrow and you go on the other side and start talking about an election, there's not one being that cares. Not one. Unless you go to hell. Okay? There's not one being that cares about what they want to know is how you did with it. That's all they care about. So I look at life and I say to myself, we're supposed to always be self-observant. How am I doing? Edgar Casey's phrase for this was watch self go by. It means always put yourself in check. Always observe yourself to see how you're doing. Right? Self-observation. So we're supposed to be asking ourselves, how am I doing? If I died tomorrow, how did I do with this election thing? How did I do with the death of a loved one? How did I handle that? Now, you can do what you want. You can say, I crashed, I broke down. At least you're honest. You must be honest. I crashed, I broke down. Be honest about it. And then what would you like to do? Do you want to be a not becoming God? Do you want to be a becoming like God? Then decide. But your tests are the things that determine whether you're doing one or the other. So I check in with myself and I say, wow, okay, if I steer it off, I want to catch myself and bounce back as soon as possible. Apologizing, making amends, and if it's not to others, to self. You know what really amazed me and surprised me? Is I would get emails, and I don't usually open downloads and things like that. Hint, don't send me any. But anyway, but I was surprised to see spiritual teachers and authors losing their minds over this. I was surprised to see spiritual teachers getting upset, like saying, life is just not even worth living. I guess we should just all give up. I'm like, wow. Now that's frightening. That's frightening. But they, and if you know any of them, call them on it and say, wait, I heard you saying this and that sounded like fear. I'm just a student. You can say that. I'm just a student, but I would like to be a voice saying, if you feel off, don't tell them they are. Say, if you feel off, maybe you want to catch yourself and bounce back. Because their job is to be the light in a dark place, not to contribute to the darkness. All right? So we have to look at being, becoming. How are we doing this? How are we doing with the transition into knowing who we are? If you lose a loved one, your job is to be different about it. Now, mind you, what everybody needs to do when they're in the dark place is to look inside to see why. So if you lost a loved one recently, and a couple people have sent messages about such a thing, if you've lost a loved one recently, remember, it's never what you think. Course in Miracles, I'm never upset for the reason I think. Do you know that if you lost a loved one, it isn't just them that you're feeling right now? You're not just going through the death of that person. You're going through every death and every loss you've ever had. Don't stand at the graveside only talking about, Sally, Joe, Jim, whomever. What is it really about? Death itself. Loss itself. It could be when you lost your favorite toy when you were 2. To the grave, it's never just that corpse. It's all of my losses come up in the death of someone. You see what I'm saying? Now, it can partly be determined by what I thought about that person. If I lose someone that I loved dearly, I'm not just losing the person, I'm losing love, at least in my mind. If you love someone and it's the person you were most close to in your life and they pass away, there's part of us that thinks, I lost love. Oh my God, now what am I going to do? That's part of us. We have to recognize that what God would be advising, if you asked God its opinion, it would say, why don't you take the love that you felt for them and integrate it into yourself and become them? Becoming. See, back to becoming. You are losing when they died, and you're not supposed to die with them. You want to be buried too? That could be arranged. No, you're supposed to resurrect. Someone else died. They resurrected. Half a split second after they passed away, they already resurrected into another dimension. How are you doing? You're still dead. That doesn't make any sense because you're the one on this planet who's still alive. Act it. Come back to life. But you can't if you don't take a look at what happened. And if you lose someone who you struggled with, there's always a part of us that goes, dang it. If only we could have worked it out. I would wish my dad hadn't died before we made peace. Right? You've heard that, right? I wish, but they're people that you probably, if you had 3 more 100 years with them, it probably wouldn't have happened. Because the dynamic was so stuck. So what you do is you integrate. What can you learn from it now as if they were alive talking to you? And do it. We can make the corrections ourselves. So do not die under any circumstance. Keep resurrecting. Keep bouncing back. Are you dead or are you resurrecting? Are you not becoming or are you becoming more like God? Through every test and challenge. So things like the election. It's very simple. I'm not going to talk about politics or politicians. I'm saying if anyone watching this all around the world and in this room, if you hear this, if you get it, what you're supposed to be doing is saying, what did this bring up inside of me? The fact that so many people are devastated, I'm not just giving you the spiritual snap out of it, although snap out of it. But what I'm saying is for you to be able to do that righteously and profoundly, let's forget who won, let's forget who lost, let's forget all that for just a second and look inside ourselves. And ask this, what did this bring up inside of me? It's not about the person. If you are upset that a female, and the emphasis is on female, lost, and it bothers you, why don't you look at how you as a female, even if you're a male, how the female parts of us keep getting stomped on? It's not about the politician, it's about the female in us that tends to get stomped on, right? If it's I'm just not happy with the male that wins, it's about every male that ever won over us. It's about bullies. It's about every dominant male energy. And we've had a few. A cop that mistreated you because of authority figure, meaning a teacher that picked on you, a bully at school. What this is it's a battle of male and female. And people started getting attached to the idea of female finally winning. Female, this is going to be really controversial, but don't email me any messages about this. Female, get ready for it. This is from Jesus, though. Everybody was trying to wait for female to finally win. But I'm telling you, female is never meant to win. because she's already won. She's already perfect in the state she is. I'm not talking about external victories. I'm talking about the whole symbolism of female is a righteous receptivity. She's already like this. She doesn't have to become masculine and win. She's this symbol, not this symbol. So, it's not about external males and females. It's internal males and females. We're struggling with our own gender issues. We're fighting for politicians because of our own gender issues. Nobody got upset by accident. It was always about triggers. If you're upset about the guy that wins, you should look at the fact that I'll bet you've had people in your life that were more assertive types, and maybe even Republicans. But they probably are money people, businessy people, people that are more left-brained, because that's the symbol of masculine. The more linear types, they seem cold and opinionated. Yeah, I got some of those in my family. Well, good. Now, all of those people you didn't like are now your president. How are you feeling? How are you feeling? And you guess what? You know your brother, your uncle, your father, your granduncle, your great this and whatever the other, even if it was women that were acting masculine, any of those family members that you have worked on, you've done breathwork seminars, you've done Om Mani Padme, pranayama breathing to clear them out of your system, you had shamanic retrievals, you've done all this, you're going to now see them on the TV every stinking day. Every day. And you'll go, I'm just going to turn the channel. You can't. It'll be in every newspaper you pass by. People are going to be talking about your uncle. Every day. The psychopath. And I'm not saying this president, I'm saying the symbol of it. Whatever you think of it. But our job for both candidates and all candidates, all time, is how can I see these people as you see them, God? Because if I can see, and this is great, what a better test than that? Because this, you guys, are annoying to a lot of people, the guy that won. And so is the other person that didn't win. Annoying to a lot of people. So perfectly so, it's a nation split. Almost a tie vote because it's split. Why? Because it's perfect. That everybody's got this kind of issue or this kind of issue. And if you can pull back and say, God, how would you have me see these people? Wow. If you hate this one or that one, and you can say, God, how would you have me see them? If we can learn to see light in these individuals, everything will be different. You thought it would be different because your candidate would win. That's not how it works. They can't do anything for you. It has to become you. So wake up. Choose to not get caught up in this. You're still going to have buttons pushed. I hear that, and I'm sorry about that. And I know they mirror things and reflect things that are probably sometimes very intense. Abusers. Either candidate that you think is an abusive person, that's fine. But they're going to reflect your abusers in the past. And they're not very fun. Abuse is not fun. It's not sane. It's not safe. It's not legal. It's not moral. And we've got one in a political position now. But in such a way, they were always like that. Most politicians reflected that. Why wasn't it such a big deal? Because we're at a period on earth where everything needs to be cleared. And it's not going to be done the way people think. So what it's doing is it's working on us on the inside now. It's not just on the outside intellectual debates. Look at how perfect this is. It goes inside and it's transforming us. It is. That's how I choose to see this. And I know it's true. I've said it many times and I'm being consistent in my beliefs and teachings. Life is about initiations and tests. Because all life is really about is us becoming more like God. How you become, how you go from not becoming to becoming is through tests and initiations. And they're a drag sometimes. They're not always wonderful. Hey, I have this uplifting experience that's taking me into higher consciousness. I had a great meditation. It's lifting me. There's never been a meditation you've ever had that you weren't supposed to apply. It was never about just blissing out. I had a great meditation. I hope I don't have any challenges today. It's always been the granting of a great meditation, frequency, light. I saw purple. Oh my God, I feel one. I heard angels. And Spirit saying, okay, the reason we sent those two is because you're going to need them. Get ready. It was never about being a bliss bunny. You're supposed to take all this in and onward, Christian soldiers. Here we go. Come out of your meditation room and walk out while people, have issues or while you have a flat tire or whatever. Again, guys, it's always been about application. One of the consistent things that I'm seeing and hearing people talk about and asking me, Michael, the things that's upsetting me is, why aren't people practicing what they preach? I hope that's not new to you. Gee, where were you? Why don't they? But it is all becoming accentuated, isn't it? All these spiritual people. And they were especially spiritual a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, because their candidate was going to win. And they didn't, and now all of a sudden they don't seem very spiritual. I would, if I were you, please look inside and get this and catch this and go, oh my God, I slipped for a moment. It was never about that. And if you think, you don't like hearing it from me, then ask yourself, if you died tomorrow upset about this, is that okay? Just ask yourself that if you think I'm off. Is it okay that I die tomorrow and I get to the other side and oh man, can you believe that? They're going to be like, what? We sent you just the right people to push your buttons. How'd you do? And you'll have your next life proportionate to that. If you got a C-, you're coming back as a C-, more or less. So there's some depression just set into the room there. Why don't more people apply? So the election's just a reflection of that. How and where and why are we applying and not applying our spirituality? Everything, guys, everything. Every meditation. And I'm going to start teaching this more and more and more. When we start our day, God is saying, awaken with me and ask me to be with you in every decision you make. In every decision you make. What you're going to wear even. You're not going to get an intellectual kind of an answer. You're not going to get a voice that literally says, oh my God, that doesn't go together. You should wear these shoes with that. It's not like you're going to hear that. But typically you feel, when you're connected, you feel inspirations. Inspirations. Things that kind of lift you up. This happens for me, like I can just have a great meditation, but I never just go, oh, that was great. Bye, meditation. That was great seeing you. To me, every time I feel high, the energy of a meditation or the room right here, right now, when I feel that high, I do something with it. I try to integrate it. When you go from a room of energy like this and you go to the grocery store, let it change your patience level when you're in line. It's a drag to be stuck in line behind slow checkers sometimes. We all get turned off by that at times. But just try to be the person who's different in the room. Taking this energy, these inspirations. I had just about a week ago, I had this thought. There's another book coming to me already. I'm like, okay, and I just set it aside. I don't go, immediately, I listen for inspiration and guidance. And I wait for it to corroborate itself. That's just my style. So I listen, and then the next client I had in my private sessions walks in, and it's the first sentence out of their mouth is the inclusion of the word of what the next book will be about. I'm like, okay, cool. We'll watch. And I just watch and listen and watch and listen. And it wasn't on my mind to write this particular thing, but it just came to me. This is just, a week ago maybe. And so I thought, okay, I'll write it, so probably I'll start on it, within a few days. And it's all so immediately in my head that it'll probably be done in a week. It'll still take time to get in the queue to print, but that's what inspiration does. It's really amazing when we don't have a bunch of garbage filling our mind, what can happen. When clarity can come, when God can come through. You get inspirations. You write an article, guys, or a blog. Any of you can do anything. A poem. Just something that lifts others, and then you yourself will be lifted. It's called good karma, but we're all lifted when we lift others. Feel the gratitude. When you see somebody here or somewhere else and they just want to say, oh, by the way, thank you. You're such a kind person. Let's say you meet somebody and you're talking and that's what they say to you. Don't just leave going, oh, that's nice. Integrate it. Let the comment mean something to you that you breathe in, not in arrogance, of course, but you breathe it in, because what it'll do is it'll give you life. It'll give you inspiration to do a project or something like that. It can make you another painting come through you today. It can make a poem or a song come through you today. Everything is supposed to be done in the inspiration of God. We're co-creators. And when we do things that are out of sync with the light of God, we're not co-creating. We're manufacturing from the ego. Even having children. How many babies are born every year? And then how many of them were actually an inspiration from the parents? Almost none. They were in the mood. They were bored. They were making up after a fight. They were doing a gratuitous lovemaking. Whatever it was, it's almost never been the following. I feel very alive inside of myself. I feel the presence of love. I just feel amazing. And my cup runneth over to where I'm just so in love with you. I can't imagine doing anything but making more of this love. To manifest it. Whether it's let's dance, sweetheart, or let's go for a drive and just be together. That's lovemaking. Or let's make love physically. And even the decision to create a child. The child should be created as an obvious, we feel so much, let's make more of it. That's what God did. God said, wow, I'm bliss. I dig being bliss. You know what I would like to do is be more bliss. I'm going to create more bliss because that's what creators do. They create. And I'm bliss, so I'm going to create more bliss. And that's when God said, let there be light, and then we were created. So it's this perfect system. Love creates more love. So when we have children, they're supposed to come from love. And almost never have they. Everything we do, guys, even opening a business, it should be an inspiration, not a desperation. Dating should be an inspiration, not a desperation. Where you decide to live should be an inspiration, not a desperation. There's a huge difference. Clearly, the least of which, one is ego and one is God. So we have to learn to follow the creative cycle. Inspirations from the heavens pour into my heart and lift me. They give me like a wow kind of a feeling. And I know that some people have been through a lot in this life, or in any life. I know that a lot of people have been very hurt, and that wow factor, they can't feel it. Even if an inspiration comes in, they don't feel like they have enough left, because when they felt wow, maybe as children, it was beat down. So they just don't, feel the confidence of that. That has to be healed. It has to be, you know what? I've lost faith. I've lost the wow factor. Even if God itself reaches down and stirs its creative hand into my heart and soul, I have this why bother kind of a feeling. My relationship. Why get happy again and go, let's try again, sweetheart. We'll just be fighting again tomorrow. So we'll just go numb. That's how people live. I've been sick for so long. Why even heal? Because it's just going to come back. That's how humans have learned to live. And I'm sorry about that. Because that's the human factor. That's what happens on this planet. Gravity weighs down upon us. But God is trying to say, and Jesus channeled it, the truth will set you free. What is the truth? Memorizing the Gospels. That's not the truth. That's not what it meant. There's a bunch of fundamentalists out there that think that memorizing passages from a book, makes you locked into holiness. The truth will set you free is very simple. Like Buddha said, ignorance of who you are, forgetting who you are, is what causes problems on the planet. So when Jesus said the truth will set you free, he was telling you the opposite, the answer. The truth of who you are sets you free. When you start recognizing who you are. So even if you've been beat down, you have to go, wait a minute. It can't be the divine in me that got beat down, because it's impossible to beat down divinity. Stop identifying with the part of you that loses elections, or that loses your opinion, your arguments in your household as a kid. that wasn't allowed to express. That is the past. That's not happening now, not in the now of God. So change it. Start identifying with a different self. Come out of this experience that's happened nationally, globally. Come out of it resurrected. Come out of it refusing to take on the identity that's trying to be given to you. Because people are still trying to give you an identity as a victim. They're arguing on TV left and right to try to make you feel like a victim again. You need to say, no, thank you. Choose the truth of who you are. The truth of who you are is perfect and holy. It's this state of innocence that the world cannot shame out of its innocence. The truth will set you free. You know, mankind, the systems on the planet, religion included, you know what it's done? It's learned to make God like man. Religion and systems of this world have made, God into man. And we think this is as good as it gets. We have forgotten how good and holy and perfect God is. So what religion does is make God like man. What spirituality is trying to do is make man into God. That's what we're supposed to be doing. Do you feel like God after the election? Do you feel like God when you get sick? No, that's a temptation. It's okay. Don't say, well, if I hadn't gotten sick, had I not lost the election, I would be more like God. No, you will never be as God unless you learn to become as God. And you can't become as God if you're not becoming. Your behaviors are not becoming. They're not favorable. They're not loving. It's through the challenges and crisis that you learn to become. But you have to choose it. You have to choose to not get into duality and not get into judgment. You have to say, there's another way of looking at this. I'm going to step over the line. I'm going to step into holiness. This is one reason why Jesus, he was challenging to people. All this love. Prince of Peace. He's like, Prince of Peace? I come as a sword. And he says in the Course, don't interpret that excessively, in the negative. He says, because the truth will set you free means I come as a sword. Here's the thing. When the truth of God comes, it can be painful. Not in the ways our heads tell us, but because the sword of Archangel Michael, the light, the ray of some ascended masters, it's all designed to sever your holiness from your non-holiness. Severing off, cutting off the ego fat. Trimming away the parts of you that aren't real. That's what the truth seems to do. And it can be painful if you want some of that old self. And we mess that up. That's why Jesus told, in one of his upsetting comments, he's sitting with all these priests, the holy guys of his time, the priests, all the, uppity, look at us. We're high priests. And imagine what would happen if you had all the spiritual leaders of the planet. I'm talking about, the ones in the most traditional fundamental religions. Let's pretend there was this conference with these people. And you had them at a conference table of, a few dozen people in this long table, in this amazing meeting, gathering of minds. And you put me in there with them. And just picture me saying, this is quoting Jesus, saying to these guys, when they say, would Mr. Mirdad like to add anything to the meeting? And I said, in the words of Jesus, the prostitutes will make it into heaven before any of you. And so it is. Do you know how that would go? First, I would not be invited back. But do you know how poorly that would go? And that's exactly what Jesus said to the priests of his time. Because he was calling out primarily only one group on the planet. He was loving, he was giving, he was working miracles. He would work miracles for those who were totally messed up, but they wanted to change. It's the ones who thought they were perfect and holy, who didn't believe they needed to heal or change or evolve. He called them out because he said, you're hypocrites. You pretend. This is big stuff here. He said, you not only pretend to be holy, that would have been fine too, is that you preach to others a message of hypocrisy. Which partly means, guys, if you're going to say you're spiritual, there's a bar you have to live up to. Just stop saying it. Don't be spiritual. Have it a secret. That way, if you lose your mind and start misbehaving, nobody will know it's out of congruence with your inner beliefs. But when you start to say you're spiritual, any of us, and especially you're a teacher, you're an author, even if you're a mom and a dad, there's a bar you're supposed to live up to with those kids, to not abuse them. And if you're a politician, there should be a bar you live up to the best of your ability. Some have tried. There are some guys that really did try, like Abraham Lincoln. He tried. That guy was in a meeting once and there's a civil war going on. It pains him. We can say, well, why did he allow it? Stop. Just stop that. He tried to stop it. There's so many things in motions. Sometimes it's challenging for one guy to stop things that everybody's doing. If all of you broke out in a fist fight right now, I'm one person. And I could stay in my God center and I still couldn't peel all of you apart at once. So Abraham Lincoln's doing his thing and he's having a cabinet meeting. And somebody came in and, they were all having their meeting and somebody came in with a kind of a little bit of a joke to tell. There's a joke about this and that, and most of them laughed, but there's always one that's got to be a problem. Saying, how could we laugh at challenging times like this? Trying to shame some lightness. And Lincoln just said, if we didn't laugh, I would have to cry. He's saying, God, just give us something. He was so pained by the war that was his response. Give me just a little laughter today. I'm not unaware or insensitive to the war, but come on, give us a break. That's a sincere guy, because he's saying, man, to know the truth and respect the illusion. So find something to laugh about. Lighten up. Don't be another voice adding to the weight of hatred and all this fear stuff. Oh, you know what this guy's going to do? You know what that one is going to do? And whether it's politically or in your own town or, there's always people gossiping. All I know is whatever is. Your job, my job, is to stay sane. And Jesus himself is telling us, do not dare be a hypocrite. If you want to say I'm an insane human being and I'm all upset, great. That's pretty predictable. But if you're going to say I'm spiritual, the problem is when you say you're spiritual, any of you at work, I'm spiritual. When you say, you wear your little miniature Buddha on your necklace. When you wear mala beads, when you wear an Om shirt. When you say you do yoga, there are people watching you, wanting you to be an example of something different. And when you show up with your peace on earth and Om on your shirt, but you're talking hatefully about politicians, you're doing something very, very dangerous. You're not living up to what you're saying. And I know some people will disagree with me on this. I'm just saying to you, people are watching you and they need someone to be sane. Someone to say, there's my peace and Om and all that. And yes, oh my God, I was really surprised to hear so-and-so died. I'm really sad and upset. It's okay, but tell them how you processed it. Be an example of how you did something different other than, and I'm hating someone right now. It makes no sense. If you can't do it, who's going to do it? If you're preaching Om and peace and love, joy and whatever on this planet, what are these people that are not becoming going to do? Where are you as an example? What are we going to do? Someone's got to be there. So, and if the famous saying, if not us, then who? And if not now, then when? I'm not telling you to be, to agree with who's this and that, or to not be sad if someone passes away. I'm just saying we have to be an example of handling it differently. And how nice is that? And, when I talked about this sort of thing over the last week when I was on tour, one of the most moving things was people coming up to me, and I just thought, wow, heartfelt. They brought up heartfelt statements that said, thank you, because I was really upset this last week, and what you said reminded me, and I really am coming back to center. I mean, all I did was, like I'm talking now to a degree, and to hear that I maybe helped somebody to bounce back, I mean, that's amazing. But everyone in this room and everybody watching this has the opportunity. Next time, and don't make up stuff like, well, I've heard all kinds of things, but, well, maybe he's an angel in disguise. I heard that the new president is actually Archangel Gabriel. And he's just, he's going to let us all know in 2 years, one day he's going to be doing a political speech and go, I am Gabriel, psych! If that happens, fantastic. I just wouldn't bet on it. You're supposed to be okay, nevertheless. I'm sorry, man, but as I'm coming to a close, I hope that this is making sense because we're talking about something important. I'm not telling you right or wrong political. I'm not telling you right or wrong when people pass away, when someone gets sick or when you get sick. It's a drag. I understand that. But you're supposed to be able to say, this too shall pass. You're supposed to be able to say, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, even though I walk through the strangest of elections, I will fear no evil because God is with me. God comforts me and guides me and supports me. That's all that matters. That I find the light at the end of the tunnel. I don't care who's in office in the tunnel. I'm going to the light at the end of the tunnel. And if this upsets anybody, any of these things going on, the smallest of tests, whatever that may be, to the biggest of tests, trust me, more is coming. Greater tests are coming to humanity. And we're supposed to be working our muscles to be able to hold people up during the greater changes that come to this world. We can all just, tuck ourselves in bed of illusion and just think everything's fine as long as we have our child and everything's just peachy in our photo albums. Look, the new babies, I'm a grandma. We can think everything's peachy as long as everything's in place. I promise you, things will not be in place for long. More and more, the rug's going to get pulled out from under us because, as Yogananda said, this is not our home. So it's okay that the illusionary world gets dismantled. Our job is to help, first, stay centered ourselves, and secondly, to help others with whatever sanity we have. And whatever sanity we have and we apply, we then receive more. Apply what's given to you, and more will be given to you. That's the law. So apply whatever sanity you've had. And guys, if you slipped and you go, God, this Michael guy, he's making me feel terrible because I slipped a bit. Not a problem. Just give credit that you see it. Bounce back. And if you go, I wish I would have bounced back sooner, don't wish for anything, just do it. Next time around, catch yourself even faster. Make a point of saying, wow, sorry to people you nagged about, and complained and scared. You know what I think? And then the big stories, I think this one politician's actually an alien, and then they're going to call in their other planetary beings from, sure enough, here they come, Zeta Reticuli. They're all going to land soon because this was whatever. Who of you by worrying can add a single day to your life, says Jesus. Come on. If not us, then who? That's what I'm asking. We're supposed to have integrated our light a bit more. And the more we went off center, don't judge yourself too harshly, but know this. The more I went off center, the less integrated I was. I get it. Let me retether everything down more firmly in me, as me. I am not a pretender. I am becoming more and more like God. I can say, I personally don't like this or that. I can have opinions. But the more I tether in the light of God, the more my opinions will fall away. And or I'll be less attached to them. Or people believing them. Bottom line is, when I uproot the stuff that's underneath it, amazing things happen. When I uproot the stuff beneath it, I become clearer. And then I talk differently about these things. And you know what? Lastly, Jesus, there's this really beautiful part in the Course in Miracles where he's saying, I need you. I think this was on a recent Facebook post that they did of mine in my Facebook page. But Jesus is saying, I know you want to be beyond all this garbage, like the recent stuff. I know that. He says, but the fact that even those of you who got triggered, believe it or not, I need you too. Because there's other people that got triggered. And if you bounce back, then you can help people that got triggered. Why? Because you can relate to them. Those of you who didn't get triggered, they're going to think you're too far beyond them and they can't learn from you. You follow? I want every one of you. You went completely insane. You went 10% insane. I've got some 10%ers I'm going to send to you. I've got some 100%ers that I'm going to send to you. They're in an asylum, but still. No. You see, we're all of value. Let's just bounce back. You be the one talking, at that group. You're the one being silent. You're the one holding presence. You're the one saying, here's what happened for me. Because see, people can't righteously say you're wrong when you say, well, this bothered me too. All I know, right or wrong, I can't tell you out there. What I do know is here's what it brought up for me. And you share, and you talk to how you turned it around in yourself. That's going to plant a little seed inside of people. And one in every so many of them is going to say, by the way, listen, thank you. When you added that, I really got that. Others are going to say, we don't like you because you're not agreeing with us. But maybe the one is enough. All right? I pray this made good sense, guys. Let's center into a nice internal process. Meditation. Setting aside the stuff of the world. We know that high in the heavens, there is this space, heaven, the I am consciousness of God. Bliss, peace, joy. And we also know that here on earth, all too often, we live the I am not. That which I am not, the competitive, the angry, the victimizer. So many things every day, not just our actions, our thoughts and our beliefs. And as we look at our lives, we know that high in the heavens, there's the I am presence of God. On earth, there's so much turmoil, the I am not. But in between is the I am becoming. I am becoming I am. I am becoming like God. And this is all done through choice. The I am becoming is in your heart chakra. The I am becoming is the intentions we set in our heart and soul. The I am becoming is the inspirations and the visions in our heart where we love and forgive because I am becoming. I am becoming forgiving. I am becoming lighter. I am becoming peaceful. I am becoming a reflection, a greater reflection of the light of God that's above me in the heavens. I am becoming. And we can see how good it feels. And imagine down further and outside of ourselves is that which I am not. That's not becoming God. Reactive, hateful, competitive, afraid, lacking. Whether it's love, affection, money, lacking. That's not God. And it's not you either. But that's how we've lived. See the difference and the contrast. Just sit, meditate for a moment. We know the holiness of the heavens, but within our own reach is the I am a reflection, I am becoming, and then there's the I am not becoming. Every harsh word, every fear, every reaction, the I am not becoming. Look at the contrast between the two. Stay objective and look at the contrast between the two. Hear the voice of God from the highest heavens down into the heart, saying to you, choose whom ye will serve. Reality or illusion? God or ego? Love or fear? Look at the apparent contrast and make a choice. Recognize any time recently, for any reason or reasons, that you stepped into the not becoming, the I am not of the ego. The ego's I am not. See where you might have slipped. And just hear these words. I see it. I am not choosing to minimize it or deny it. I see it. And I was mistaken to think I am not, as God created me. I was mistaken to think that there's a single soul on this planet that is unlike God. I was mistaken to let my ego's eyes show me flaws in people. I was mistaken. I may not know exactly how, where, and why, but I will own that I must be mistaken, because only God is real, and if I'm not seeing God, I must have been mistaken. For this, I am sorry, and I surrender it. To choose to see any being on the planet or beyond, to think of any being as less than holy, would then fate us to being unholy. This is not what I choose today. I release all such thoughts, and I give them to you, Father, Mother, God. Unconditionally as possible, I surrender all this to you, Father, Mother, God. What I choose instead is to rise into my heart that reflects the I am, the image of God. I choose to be in my heart. And let's all breathe into our heart and feel the heart opening, feel identified with that heart center. The light of God shining down into our heart. And then shining down into every particle of our being, every chakra, every gland, every organ, filling with this light that I am. I am becoming like God, because I'm looking at even the greatest challenging people on this planet and saying, you know what? Even though I can see and believe this about you, I refuse to hate you. I'm willing to look at what you bring up in me, and I am willing to affirm that no matter what I think I see, there is a light made in God's image in you and in every being. And I release you to find it, just as I release myself to find it. And just look at anybody you were challenged with. Just do your best to see a light overwhelm them. Love the hell out of them. See them glowing. See their hearts softening. And it isn't just the one you're thinking of. It's anybody that was ever like them in your opinion, in your mind, in your lessons. Love in every one of them. In all political parties, in all nations, in all colors, no exclusions. Don't tell the politicians to have no exclusions. Choose it in your own heart. The world is changing through our efforts to be as God created us to be. And for this, we are grateful. And so it is.